Hello, I'm Anna Kalczyńska and welcome to Press Corner, our Sunday review of key events of the past week with our colleagues here in the media in Warsaw. On Press Corner, we enjoy the freedom of free press with presenting you diverse opinions and letting our audience reach their own conclusions. And today, I'm along with our guests, Małgorzata Zawadka, US correspondent for Polish media. Good morning, Małgosiu. David McQuaid, freelance journalist. Hello again, David.
Nice to be here.
Łukasz Warzecha, do Rzeczy, journalist, independent journalist, and Dmitrij Mickiewicz, Belsat.
Dzień dobry.
Dzień dobry. I suggest we kick off with Germany's terrorist attack, a peaceful evening in Magdeburg at a Christmas market, one of the oldest in the town and in the country, quickly turned into a nightmare when a car rammed into the crowd, killing at least 5 people, including a 9-year-old child, and leaving 200 wounded.
A peaceful evening at one of Germany's oldest Christmas markets quickly turned into a nightmare after a car plowed into the crowd, killing at least 5 people, including a young child. More than 200 people have been injured and 15 have been taken to hospital in critical condition.
As the mayor of the state capital of Magdeburg, I can only say how shocked and deeply affected I am, and my heart is with them. I apologize to the victims and their families.
The suspected perpetrator of the attack, a 50-year-old man from Saudi Arabia, has been detained. He was not known to authorities to have an Islamist background and is believed to have acted alone.
The perpetrator is a 50-year-old man from Saudi Arabia who first entered the Federal Republic of Germany in 2006. He had a settlement permit and thus a permanent residence permit. He worked as a doctor in Brandenburg.
The local police examined the vehicle used in the attack in search of a possible explosive device, but no such object was found. Authorities are treating the incident as a terrorist attack. Close to 3,000 Christmas markets take place across Germany every year. Keeping the events safe has been a major concern since 2016, when an Islamist extremist attacker drove a truck into a crowd of Christmas market goers in Berlin, killing 13 and injuring dozens more.
Huge tragedy for Germany, and figures on the political right immediately sought to link the Magdeburg attack with Islamist extremism. Only that those parallels were not totally right, as it occurred that the Magdeburg suspect has expressed sympathy for the German far right. And as we know, this attack comes in a period of heightened political tensions in Germany with new elections coming. So, Łukasz, to you now. It's difficult not to envisage that this attack will have a huge impact also on Germany political scene, right?
Well, definitely. First of all, I would like to remind you that one of the victims of the first victim of the attack of 2016 was a Polish driver whose car was hijacked and he himself was killed by the attacker. Just to remind. As far as this event is concerned, I think that the most important outcome or most important opinion that we can build upon this event is that immigration is a risk, immigration in general. Even if we take into account and if we believe that this particular person was not an Islamist radical, but rather the other way around, the background is immigration and is Islam, even if he was anti-Islamist. And one other very important thing is that he was a legal immigrant and he worked as a doctor. So
as a psychiatrist.
So this falsifies a notion that is quite often repeated in Poland, that if we take in immigrants who would work, who would not live on our social benefits, this will be harmless. This will cause no problems. No, it will. In general, we have to be very, very careful with immigration, whether it is illegal immigration, this is obvious, or legal immigration of people wanting to work. And I think the problem is, first of all, the cultural background. This man was from Saudi Arabia, and as I said, Islam was the background of this attack. However, he seemed not to support radical Islam, rather the other way around.
Well, I think we always should ask the question, cui bono, right? I mean, who is going to profit from this attack? And apparently it's going to be AfD. So this is also a trigger here. Yeah,
just to remind, CDU-CSU has around 30% on average in the polls, and AfD has about 18 to 20% in the polls. It's the second political force in Germany, whereas SPD is around 15% right now. All the other parties are well below those digits.
How about you? What is your take, Małgosiu?
Because if we say immigration is a risk, immigration is a reality. That's where we have to live, and we have to find out a way to manage immigration in a way that radicals will be at least observed. And I would say that not really Islam is, of course, and here we had an example of radicalism. So far-right radicalism is a risk also. And from what I know, I read it on CNN, they cited unnamed sources, so it might be not correct, but German government was warned about this Mr. Taleb, of all names that he was named, and the German foreign ministry was warned, and intelligence was warned 4 times between 2007 and 2008 that he's a radical, that he says says hateful things on the internet. So I would really say that there is some kind of a bridge in going around the immigration.
Definitely,
so
we should probably.
I feel laughable because I think that this Mr. Taleb is like a complete, not really. It's hard to. And also psychological health is a risk, because obviously we have to say that he was a disturbed person, and there were many signs. So I would be not, of course, immigration is a risk, I mean marriage is a risk, childbirth could be a risk, like many things could be risky. The thing is,
but
I have to say that in America we just had, Donald Trump assassins, 2 assassins, and the health insurance person assassin, they were all legal American citizens. So
okay,
I'm very much against silly way of immigration.
Let me comment or let me respond. First of all, immigration is not given from heaven. It is something that we can manage. We can decide that we want more immigration or less immigration. We will control it more or less. We have also examples in Poland right now, whereas legal immigration, completely legal immigration, causes more and more crime. We just have a couple of days ago 2 Georgian immigrants who perpetrated very violent attacks, robbing people. One of them was an app taxi driver working legally in Poland. So this is an example.
It's a healthy way to assume that people who are immigrants, there are also bad people among them. And just,
but we have statistics, and statistics say that, for example, as far as Georgians are concerned, in Poland, they are the most criminal group of immigrants. So we have statistics, and we have to manage our immigration based on statistics.
Well,
it's the issue not of the just, values, or assessing this from the point of view of impressions. So this is, these are facts, and this is the work of special services. For example, where were these special services when, if Małgosia says that they were told that this man should be looked at least?
Well,
so this is one issue.
This Christmas, let me just tell you that this Christmas market, right, in Magdeburg was well protected with concrete blocks. They were prepared, but they didn't foresee that the attacker would use a very small car that could fit in between those blocks.
This is the issue.
This is the work of intelligence. And by the way, let me quote you just NATO, which praises Poland for its common-sense policy on immigration and on being an efficient country as far as security is concerned. So maybe we come back to the security issues, right, on European level. David?
Let me just point out this is a very peculiar case, okay? Because from what I've read of the media coverage is that the Germans did check him out, the German security services, several times, and concluded after examining him that he didn't pose a threat. One of the reasons is that he's a classic political asylum candidate because he was against the very radical Islam that Saudi Arabia embraces, and that it was very credibly thought that he was exactly the sort of candidate who would be eligible for execution in Saudi Arabia, which is very enthusiastic about executing those kinds of people. Yeah. And we have very famous Somalian, for example, advocates of Western human rights and opponents of radical Islamism who have been given sanctuary and a voice, a platform in places like the Netherlands. And this fellow looked very similar and turned out to be something else.
Exactly, David, just let me tell you this.
The second point, very important, I want to link to this, is that the fact that his profile is so unusual indicates that either one, it may be a particular individual case from which you can't draw broad conclusions about all migrants being a threat. This may be just a disturbed individual. Or secondly, and obviously this is speculation on my part, but we are witnesses right now of a very large hybrid warfare campaign that's going on in all of Europe, guided by Russian and Belarusian services that are particularly attempting to drive on these cleavages inside Europe. This is happening at a very particular moment in Germany, right in the runoff election where the AfD has got a very strong chance. And I'm sorry, Russian and Soviet intelligence before it has a long history of false flag operations where they got another national, not traceable to them, to do it. I'm not saying that we have any hard evidence of this happening, but I mean, you have to look at the context.
I tend to agree with you.
Far-fetched hypothesis, nevertheless, even if it is so, they have to build on something that really exists. And the fact of immigration, of Islam immigration, really exists.
That exists, but also AfD is a fact, and its pro-Russian stance, it's a fact. So this is a perfect party to build on.
Yeah, but at the same time, you see that this guy was connected with AfD. He supported their thesis. So if we're speaking that AfD will benefit from this terrorist act, it's vice versa. By the way, because their image going to be damaged by that. Because if this guy was connected with them, and if it's confirmed on the official level, so then they are in trouble. At the same time,
they can always distance themselves from him as a disturbed individual. So
well, supporting a political party is not being connected with it.
Well, that's right. But the tough thing is that, Łukasz, you're absolutely correct. That this shows, and countless other instances have shown before, that there needs to be serious control of migration. Although no system is foolproof and no security check is foolproof. This guy was checked again and again and again, and they still missed this. That's the first point. The second point is I think that Małgorzata is also right, that given the demographics of Europe, that if Europe does not have immigration coming in, the economy is going to systematically shrink, and Europe is not going to prosper. So the question is, how do you have migration? I don't think there's an absolute opposition there. How do you have migration?
You remember
Angela
Merkel, her famous quoting saying, "Wir schaffen das," that we are going to manage. We manage, and today we can say, "Wir schaffen das." Nicht mehr. We don't manage.
But one quite peculiar thing is that if you remember, the other attacks in Europe, taking place in Europe, it has always been like that. I mean, special services missed something. Remember the attack at the Brussels airport? I can't remember, it was 2019, I think, something like that. And there were the attackers, and the Belgian special services were also warned about them, and they also checked on them to no effect. So this really is, I would say, a pattern that tends to repeat itself. So something is wrong either with special services or with immigration, or with the system.
Or we have more people, we have a war in Europe. I mean, the situation changed. That's just the reality.
Or maybe we're
To
still
sum
too
up,
naive and
that's what I wanted to
underestimate the
say.
threats.
That's because the immigration, like the naive and careless view of immigration is dangerous. That's what I would say. That's just to sum up, that we need system, we need a full system, but we cannot stop immigration because it will, and with climate change, it will, people will come to
The other
Europe.
thing to bear in mind is simply this, is that the only way to have, and that doesn't even work, to have perfect protection against terrorism is to introduce a totalitarian system of control, okay?
That's right.
And we do not know how many terrorist attacks were not carried out in Europe because the security services did their job.
Fair point.
So occasional attacks like this are inevitable and are not necessarily a discrediting of the entire security system. It's just something that if we want to have open democratic societies are going to happen.
So it's basically collateral damage from democratic society, yeah?
Among other things, yeah, I think so, yeah.
But the point is that at this moment, people start asking questions like, we're paying taxes, so why the state is not doing something to protect it? Because just the example Łukasz gave with Georgians, it's obvious for everyone that on the post-Soviet states, Georgians represent the biggest criminal community at all. So they're the backbone of, for example, Russian criminal community. Mm-hmm. So it's basically Georgian. Everyone knows that. And for me, it's like, the secret services didn't know that? Wow. So then you just start asking questions, and a usual person start asking questions, and then we get 20% of AfD in Germany.
Exactly.
Because this is the direct outcome. Of course, we can blame Russian propaganda or anyone else, but still, there are these direct connections with it.
Anyway, we can agree that the blame is going to fall upon Olaf Scholz and his government so far, and the political uncertainty continues in Germany as we are waiting for the snap elections upcoming this February, following the coalition collapse of the government of Olaf Scholz. Let's take a look at this short material.
Political uncertainty continues in Germany. Following the collapse of his coalition government in November, the country's Chancellor Olaf Scholz called a confidence vote earlier this month.
After an election, all Democrats must be prepared to work together for the good of the country, to build bridges and forge compromises. This is not possible without moral maturity, decency and seriousness, but only with a sense of responsibility for our entire country, for all citizens.
Scholz called the confidence vote expecting to lose and framed the move as an opportunity for voters to set a new course for Germany.
Bringing forward the Bundestag elections is also my goal. In this election, the citizens can then determine the political course of our country. That is why I am putting the question of confidence to the voters today.
Only 207 out of 733 MPs voted for the current administration to stay in power. The snap election date has been set for 23rd of February, and the campaign season is already underway. Opinion polls predict a victory for the opposition Christian Democratic Union in the upcoming vote, although not by a wide enough margin for it to govern alone. All three coalition parties are projected to lose seats. The Christian Democrats, led by Friedrich Merz, are running on a platform of tax cuts as a way to combat Germany's economic stagnation. They are also taking a strong stance against illegal immigration.
I will not focus our country's economic policy on new debt, high taxes and a lot of redistribution, but on performance and competitiveness. We don't want to distribute the existing small cake in a better way. We want to work together to create a bigger cake for everyone.
Merz is also a vocal supporter of Ukraine and has promised to increase its ability to strike inside Russia.
Our position is clear. We want to enable Ukrainian army to reach military bases in Russia.
The issue of military support for Ukraine, as well as immigration and the economy, are expected to dominate Germany's political discourse in the coming weeks.
So unless nothing unexpected happens, like the rise of AfD in the polls just ahead of the elections, we will see Friedrich Merz probably as a new chancellor. So the biggest question now remains whether he's capable and willing of changing the paradigm vis-à-vis Ukraine and Russia.
Well, if we take a look at the polls, there is even more fervent question is who will he rule with? Yes. Because this is 30% or 31%, and then SPD is, as I said, about 15%. So a coalition of CDU with SPD, well, it's possible. It happened quite a few times in Germany before, but now the question is how they can combine the views of SPD with the current views of Friedrich Merz, who tries to hijack a little bit some of the points of the program of AfD. With the immigration, for example, the main difference between AfD and CDU is about Ukraine, because AfD is much more, I would say, Ukraino-skeptical in comparison with CDU. And another very important question is how far or how long can this wall around AfD be kept standing? I've been asking this question myself for quite a long time, and I think this time is coming to an end. I mean, there will be probably a moment in German politics when AfD will be taken into some coalition, perhaps first in one of the Landes, of the countries which form the republic, and then in central government. Will it be in after these elections or after the next? We will see. Nevertheless, I'm sure that it will happen.
Because right now we are in the moment that actually it's possible, because we will see the Donald Trump inauguration on 20th, and a month later will be, and Elon Musk just wrote on his X that AfD is actually a cool party and probably they are the one who would govern well, better. So we see this normalization of radicalism, which is very dangerous. So we, and with like really normalization of the right-wing parties and all that they bring with themselves, with the shift of cultural shift of America, I think they really have a fair chance, even in these elections.
I mean,
it really very much depends on how much Elon Musk and Donald Trump will go with these absolute crazy ideas just to be these great disruptors, because that's what they are trying to do. So I really think it's a fair. We should be concerned.
There's a real possibility of an X bounce the same way that we got a TikTok bounce in Romania.
Exactly. That's what I.
We don't know. I mean, Germans are different. You know, the dynamic of the German electorate is different. We'll just have to see. But that's absolutely a potential risk.
But I have to correct you, because the newest piece of news says that it was information gathered by journalists from the portal snoop.ro that the Romanian fiscal administration found out that these TikToks advertisements or videos were sponsored by it's called Romanian National Liberal Party, which is a part of EPP.
Yeah,
it was not sponsored by Russians.
I'm not talking about who it came from. I'm talking about the effect of the platform itself. And you have a platform owner.
Let's not dive into it, because
you're not an important political player.
Nevertheless, there was that narrative that these were Russians, and it was treated as an obvious outcome. It is not.
Łukasz, we don't know that.
We don't know.
We are unable to verify this info.
I didn't make a claim one way or the other, Łukasz.
I'm just quoting Romanian sources and portals.
Right.
They all wrote about it yesterday.
All right. But we stick to Germany, if we may, okay? Let's go back to this tweet by Elon Musk, which was surprising indeed. It was amazing. He just basically wrote that there are no differences between the two programs of the Republican Party, of Donald Trump, and AfD, and that everything fits in here, as he says.
This just means that, you know, not all people should sound their opinion on all topics. Because if I don't know anything about urbanistics, I just want to speak about this. And that's it. Because we shouldn't consider that Elon Musk knows everything.
Absolutely
How on earth he knows German politics. You know,
He's an influential figure, a
man in the
millionaire.
world, and he has a lot of influence. And
Yes.
right
Absolutely.
now, he never, like from the moment he said he's anti-woke and he hates everything on the left because his son becomes his daughter, and this is his personal trip. I think he's very influenced by the pure hatred of the everything on the left, and that we really should be concerned of whatever he's writing. And he did reconstruct former Twitter into very much right-wing popularization, normalization platform, which have only 2
It's called free
months.
speech.
yes.
No, Mr. Warzecha, Mr. Łukasz, it's not free speech.
It is.
It's a freedom to say lies, to spread
You have
lies,
community notes
especially
introduced by Elon
it's
Musk.
very no. It's we would engage in a discussion because I'm very much for free speech. But when if someone who has so much money and so much influence utters this kind of words, what is the what the free nations that would fight for freedom should do? Because behind Elon Musk, I know it's not as much as free speech as violence, right? This is violence in a speech.
But it's
because
free speech.
it's not free speech.
You can write
It's
what you think about it. You can write it on X. Nobody
of
limits
course,
you.
but
Try to do it on Blue Sky. You won't be allowed.
yes, but I am not the richest person in the world who has algorithms, who bought this platform, and he can do whatever he wants.
But we also
and
have
he's not
quite
fair.
rich,
So we just
quite
need
rich
to
people
know
who have opposite views,
what I
like
am
George
saying.
Soros, for
They
example.
don't
We
engage.
just need to realize that people who do not consider saying the truth as the thing that humans should do, especially when they have free, a platform to speak, with people who are truthful, and truth will always lose if it's confronted with lies.
Don't mix opinions with facts. These are two
I do
different
not.
things.
This is an
I teach
ontological
critical thinking, and that's the first
discussion,
thing. The
I'm
fact
afraid.
is that Elon Musk owns X, and he's the richest man in the world.
And
So
he doesn't limit free speech on X.
Of course he does. He manipulates free speech. That's
No,
the
he
thing.
doesn't
Of
limit. You
course
can
he
write
does.
whatever you want.
No, yeah, but my
No,
opinion
not
will
everything.
not be
No,
seen.
you will be banned
Will not be
when you
seen.
write about things that X
that's
does not
the-
allow. So no, this is not so free.
You
as
want?
would
You
like
can, we
to
can
see it.
try. We can try.
We should
afterwards.
try once. That's true. Next time, let's try.
Personally, just
We will
looking,
air it.
looking
on
at
air.
X, looking at Polish X, from the other side, I personally I didn't notice any changes, because the level of hatred in comments on Polish X
That is true.
just keep at the same level.
So the argument.
This is just the same. I personally was shocked when I tried to write something on X, and I was basically shocked by the level of hatred in the comments on Polish X, and at the same time I was shocked by the number of bots. This is unbelievable.
And
But at
if
the
you
same
are
time,
a woman, and especially older woman in this surroundings, and you try to utter something, the level of personal hatred, the level of personal criticism is unbelievably
Tell me about
bigger.
it. I have 180,000 people who watch me on X,
But
and
you
I
are-
really do experience much more hatred than you do on X.
It's a question of opinions. You have different opinions.
No,
Łukasz,
that's the fact,
Łukasz?
because I don't have the platform.
but
yeah.
at the same time, on Facebook, for example, I cannot post a poem from the 19th century because they consider it offending for Russians or
But this is
something like
meta.
that.
This is different.
So that's and this is like direct censorship.
All right.
So
Because-
what we really need is a discussion. It's a free discussion, and with Elon Musk on Twitter, you do not get a free discussion.
Yes, we
Ladies
do.
and
will get-
gentlemen,
Yes, we
please
do.
let's move on, because we could never end this topic. I'm
That's interesting.
very
Okay,
interested
yeah.
with this. We should perhaps organize a different platform for this
Say
one.
a little bit something about Germany.
Yes, exactly. I was going to go back to
All
Germany.
right. I would just
Since-
like to point out that the situation now in Germany is in some ways favorable for Poland and for a lot of Eastern Europe, in the sense is that
How so?
well, if Merz wins, and is able to form a government, although I think that a grand coalition with the SPD would not be the best option. And I think that
Let me just point out that this government had Annalena Baerbock as a Minister for Foreign Affairs who had clearly different views than Olaf Scholz. And we might face a very similar situation with Friedrich Merz
we would at least
and
have
someone
a
from
German
SPD.
we would at least have a German chancellor that would be working in tandem with, let's say, the Polish government's point of view,
yes,
and a lot of Eastern Europe and Scandinavia on Ukraine, which might be, you know, depending on your point of view, obviously, but might be a favorable thing, especially with the change in administration happening in the U.S. So it's not all bad news in Germany, but it's going to be very difficult. And I agree with Łukasz, the whole question about what, you know, just like it's happening in France. I mean, how long can you maintain a cordon sanitaire around a party that's number 2 or possibly even number 1 in the country? That's an open question.
Absolutely.
And still call yourself a democracy.
Absolutely. It starts to break at some point. All right, let me now move to our third topic, which is a NATO meeting in Brussels and a discussion around the peacekeeping troops deployed still potentially and theoretically to Ukraine. They could count as much as 40,000 soldiers, and what would be the extent? What would be the authority governing those troops, and who would be participating? Let's take a quick look.
With the new Trump administration set to take power in January, Ukraine is at a crossroads when it comes to Western military support. Earlier this week, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky traveled to Brussels to meet with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte and address the European Council.
It's really very important to use these 2 days in Brussels to meet with all our partners and to have the same, what is very important, not divided, the same joint position of Europe.
The 27 leaders of the European Union met on Thursday for the last formal council meeting before United States President-elect Donald Trump returns to the White House. The issue of preparing for diminished U.S. military support for Ukraine was high on the agenda.
All right, David. So Meloni, for instance, she says Italian soldiers would be deployed, however, under an UN umbrella. So that puts into question who should be the one, what organization should be the one?
This is a very interesting question, especially from Poland's point of view. And I think from the government, from Tusk's point of view, there are 2 things going on here. It's very interesting to watch his behavior. Number 1 is obviously this general realization that Poland has to do everything it can to avoid Ukraine being absorbed and annexed by Russia, because that automatically means a threat to Poland's national existence and the independence of Eastern Europe in general. But the second issue is that the Polish experience with World War II of being betrayed or left to hang out to dry by your Western allies means that that Poland is extremely skeptical about any measures to protect or give guarantees to Ukraine that does not include the United States. And certainly the Polish government is very skeptical and cold about Macron's face-saving idea of throwing 5 brigades, including a Polish brigade, onto the Ukrainian-Russian border. You know, again, feeling very quite justifiably that it's without a U.S. nuclear guarantee that Polish troops are getting hung out to dry. And so I think Tusk is playing this very well. I mean, I think Macron's proposal is not entirely serious. I think what he was trying to do is simply, as a negotiating tactic, to raise the level of uncertainty to Putin. But this 5-brigade proposal, as a practical military matter, is a non-starter. It needs to be much. If it's going to work, it needs to be much stronger.
Okay, but Macron is not alone. He's got the Brits on his side, perhaps the Netherlands as well. So maybe Finland, who knows? So
in my opinion, President Macron is trying to use the opportunity which is given to him by the political turmoil in Germany. He wants to present himself as a political leader towards the United States under the rule of Donald Trump, because Donald Trump definitely will not want to send any American troops to the demarcation line or whatever it will be in Ukraine. This is quite obvious. Another question is these forces which would potentially or theoretically station on the demarcation line, will they have a UN or at least an EU mandate. This is crucial, absolutely crucial, because the status
As
of
I
forces,
understand, definitely they would have an EU status, right?
the status of forces without any mandate is just very, very uncertain. Sure. And a third question, which I think is very crucial here in Poland, is whether Poland is going to send any troops. I personally am definitely against sending any Polish troops there, but just looking at it from an analytical point of view, there is a huge political risk for Donald Tusk if he were to take such a decision, because Poles, in large part, are against sending any troops to Ukraine.
Polish people are against sending troops to Ukraine. But now, what is the bigger risk for Tusk? Not sending the troops, or Ukraine losing the battle with Russia?
But Polish troops are not necessary there. I mean,
they are not. But if he was to decide,
this is our sovereign decision.
If he was to decide,
Polish troops are not crucial there. I mean, we can easily imagine such a group of countries without Polish troops.
But why would they exclude Polish? I'm very much against going anywhere with Polish troops, but this is also a part of reality. The war is reality.
Because we are a neighbor of Russia, I imagine. This is the only argument.
Why would we not go there if other
because
soldiers
it creates a huge risk for Polish soldiers.
I fully agree.
Polish soldiers attacked there by Russians is a completely different thing than, let's say, Dutch soldiers attacked there by Russians, although it would also create a huge risk. Nevertheless,
but
look at opinion polls. I'm looking at it now just from an analytical point of view. If you are a politician just before presidential elections in Poland, try to tell people in Poland that we are going to send Polish troops to Ukraine.
You could also argue it creates a greater temptation for Russia to intervene because of the Russian propaganda line that Poland is an aggressor.
A neighboring country, hostile.
But in the near future, I honestly think we will never see American troops engaged here because as long as Trump and then J.D. Vance or whoever is in power, this is obvious. And we are one of the biggest military in Europe. So I think it's because we are commentaries, right? So I don't think it's fair not to discuss this question.
That's why we are.
We will have. I think that we, in order to have peace in Europe, we will have to commit our troops. I think it's obvious. I know it's heartbreaking. I don't want to do it.
Nothing is determined. This is our political decision. We are a sovereign nation, sovereign country.
Yes, but they will not.
We are not forced.
We are not forced, Łukasz. We are not forced, but we will face difficult choices. And Małgorzata is right. But just to wrap up, because unfortunately time's running, nothing of this will happen without the approval of Viktor Orbán. So what to do with Viktor Orbán? This is the big question, especially now with the whole story around Marcin Romanowski and putting into, making it difficult for Donald Tusk with his presidency just starting, right? And clearly weakening his position. So how would you comment on that? What's your take, David?
Well, I think it's going to be a very tricky issue, especially because as it's becoming increasingly apparent, the next year's presidential election here is not a foregone conclusion. You could easily go either way. And we could also see that presidential election is probably a make or break for this government. If they lose the election, it's going to be very difficult to imagine them lasting another 2.5 years with a complete impasse in the court system and a constitutional crisis. It's not going to work. So this is absolutely crucial, and Orbán is playing his part on it, for his own purposes as well. I mean, his own political career and his own government is at stake here, and so he's also playing for high stakes.
I would comment that so far this situation is actually playing against law and order candidate for president, because he actually, I felt that he had a quite good press and he was doing quite well until this situation.
Until the famous quote, I think nothing.
Yes, but also it shows...
Asked about the story of
Viktor Orbán is really considered in Poland as pro-Russian politician, and we know he is. So I honestly think that in the long term it might play for PO, which is Donald Tusk, although it depends on how they will deal with it right now. But it's the situation,
on the European
it's kind of funny and tricky, and it kind of normalizes Orban somehow, but it does honestly, I think Polish voters will be it's kind of distasteful in the long term.
Yes,
and the usage of solidarity letters next to Mr. Romanowski, right? It's just also immoral, cynical, and it shows a peace in a very bad light.
You're commenting on a domestic scene, but my question was going rather to the European scene. I mean, what is the situation of Donald Tusk today and his presidency beginning with Viktor Orbán clearly vetoing any more offensive issues and I mean more decisive decisions, right? Like for instance in the Council of Foreign Affairs.
But you can't really set it quite apart. I mean the situation in Poland and the situation in the EU. I wouldn't definitely agree with Viktor Orbán being seen as pro-Russian. He's just pro-Hungarian. Pro-Russian is an opinion, a piece of opinion shared by the
not many times he said
by the coalition voters, sympathizers of the current government. There is also a quite different opinion, which is mine, that he is just pro-Hungarian, and he definitely calculates everything that he's been doing. He calculates it very well. So he also, I think, calculated very well the question of Mr. Romanowski and the asylum given him in Hungary.
That remains to be seen.
Which I think
remains to be seen. We still have independent courts in Hungary, so we are awaiting 40 days up until the court reaches its decision. And I will just remind you that the Polish government already said that they are going to take the case to the European Court of Justice. So.
Yes, but the European Court of Justice already said in 2019 that a country is not bound by ENA if a court sees circumstances which justify not giving away a citizen of another country. So high pressure
on the Hungarian court then.
Anyway, I think that Viktor Orbán is playing against Mr. Tusk in a very skilled way, because he draws to European attention, the situation in Poland. As David said, the chaos in the judicial system, which is a great problem for Donald Tusk. And he also shows that there are, in his opinion at least, some reasons to believe that there is no fair trial for opposition politicians in Poland. So we will see, but in my opinion, the biggest problems lie with Donald Tusk right now, not with Viktor Orbán, definitely.
Yeah, I would here just add that, while we're discussing all these things, like chaos in the judiciary systems, and we're speaking about this deployment of possible Western troops and possible demarcation line, in the heads of Russians, in the heads of their generals, in the heads of their establishment, they're already waging war against the West. They're already fighting against us, against you, against everyone. So they're already waging this war. They're not only using the conventional methods. So for them, attacking Polish soldiers, Danish soldiers is not an issue at all. They even don't consider that. If you open their magazines, if you open their official sources, they openly write about it. They openly write about their possibilities of using nuclear weapons and about their wishes to do this. They openly declare it. Only the thing that, here we just try not to notice it. For me, it's a little bit strange when people are discussing these kind of things without understanding what the opponent thinks at the same time.
We are losing the context.
Yeah, so
unfortunately, we need to put a full stop here. Thank you very much, all of you, for this very interesting discussion. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope our viewers too. You have watched Press Corner. We wish you all Merry Christmas, and may nothing interesting happen during the time of Christmas. And we will see each other on Sunday at 11:15 a.m. next week. Thank you very much.